Hello, this is Bach Class number 2. I'm going to continue from where I left off in Bach Class number 1. I started at the beginning of the Prelude to the First Suite, and I finished, the last notes I played were the end of bar 10. So I'm going to start in bar 11, and if you haven't seen Bach Class number 1, you might want to go watch it before you dive in the middle of this. So one of the things that we talked about was finding tension and release. And so that really continues in this next section a lot. Bar 10, which was the last bar that you heard, this is a non-tension bar. This next bar, this is a diminished 7th chord, and again, you don't have to know a lot about theory, but I will tell you, this is the most tension that we've had so far in this piece. So it's not a bar that we arrive on with like a hooray kind of a feeling, but it's a bar that we arrive on with strength, and we kind of say, I'm playing this bar in this intense way. So sometimes when we hit a tension bar, we want to do that to kind of sit on the discomfort, because this bar isn't a bar that says, I'm so happy to be here. It's a bar that says, kind of get me out of here. And then the next bar, which is bar 12, is a more normal chord, and so it has release. And then we repeat that again in bar 13. This is again a diminished chord. It has more tension, so we a little sit on it, and then we release. And so I'm going to play some of that so that you can hear this idea of what I mean when I say I'm playing into the tension. Okay, so I'm going to start in bar 10. So you heard a few things. You heard me play downbeats a little bit long. I usually pull my bow just a little bit on the downbeats. So for instance, these patterns that are a little arpeggio, like in bar 12. Remember, I don't want to do the same exact thing twice in the same bar because it's a similar pattern. So I play my downbeat a little elongated and then I flow. Same thing in bar 13, which is a dissonance bar. I play my downbeat. And I tend to play bar 13 a little louder than bar 12. So I sit on my downbeat, but then I flow, and yet I'm still trying to not make a relaxed sound. I'm trying to make a sound that has a little edge in it because I'm in a bar that feels like it needs some edge. Then I let all the air deflate. Because this bar 15 is the beginning of a sequence that's going to go forward. And I find this to be the low part of the piece so far, actually, that's going to build forward. So we play that chord in 15, in 16, 17. There's our one of our G and F sharps again, so that's a little bit of tension, but it's not as much tension as some of the diminished chords that we had. And then bar 19. And bar 19 sounds like, whoa, that's like the beginning, right? That's like G major. Those are our notes from the very, very beginning of the piece, but we don't linger particularly here. We keep going because we're going to have a big arrival at a fermata coming up really soon. So I'm going to start now in bar 15, and you're going to hear my patterning is going to be very much what I talked about in video number 1. I'm going to play some lengths on the downbeat by pulling my bow longer. I'm trying not to really play it like heavier. I am trying to make this emphasis with length of the note because I'm trying to keep my bow moving kind of in a flowing manner. Okay, and I also said that I would alternate the slurs versus the not slurs, and I just did some slurs, so I will do this one with fewer slurs in the music. Okay, so I'm going to start at 15, and you'll notice that I play downbeats and then I move. Okay, and so one of the things that you may remember is that I talked about low notes. This is now the lowest note. Before, our lowest note was E, which we had reached when we had an E minor chord previous in video number 1. Now we are at the C sharp, and so if you look at the mapping for these next few bars, we're going to play C sharp twice, and then C natural twice, and then we're going to play an arpeggio in bar 22 that goes from our very lowest note. We can't play a lower note on the cello than C, and it's going to go to the highest note we've had so far in the piece. And so that's a great range. So that's really important, and there's a fermata on that note. So that's a very much of a, I have arrived somewhere kind of a place, but it's, the chord is weird on that bar on 22. So this is a place that sounds like an arrival, but it doesn't sound like I'm done. Definitely doesn't sound like I'm done with the piece. It sounds like I have more things to say. So we want to hold it, arrive on it, and hold it in a majestic fashion while still understanding that the listener knows we're going to keep going. Okay, so I'm going to play that sequence, which is kind of, I think, the biggest thing that we've had so far in the piece. Why don't I go back to, I'll go back to 19, where we have our G major chord. And now we start again on a low point. And so this little sequence of scales that comes after the fermata sounds to me like a scale that moves up, kind of turns around, moves back up, turns around. So I'm arriving each time at those little turnarounds in the scale. And then I get a bar, which is bar 24, where I have really interesting notes that I want to emphasize bunches of beats. So after the fermata, here's my scale. And now lots of emphasis in a way that I haven't been really doing, right? I'm emphasizing every beat in this bar. And you can be big or little here depending on what you want. You can feel like you have low notes, bass notes here, or you can stay a little in the lower key energy zone. Here comes another bar where I want to emphasize all the beats. And you may hear different editions have different notes in there. Just be aware that some of them are a little changed, and that's okay. You can do what you have in your edition. I'm going to stop here for today. There's going to be one more video. I think I can get all the way to the end in Bach Class number 3, so go check that out.